Coming up, the Cowboys try to make it 4 in a row against the champs, and the Eagles try to stay unbeaten in Arizona. This is Locked On Game to Game NFL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? You are listening to Locked On Game to Game NFL, local experts taking you from game to game in week 5 of the NFL. I'm your host, Daniella Bruce, and thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. The Lions are hurting going into week 5, looking at what could be another week without their top running back and their top wide receiver. As if beating Bill Belichick wasn't hard enough already. The Patriots do look a little more beatable right now, though, so Locked On Lions has the key to Detroit's second win of the season.
The Detroit Lions must keep their defense off the field if they want to knock off the New England Patriots this Sunday. I'm Matt Derry, host of the Locked On Lions podcast, and it is simple. Dan Campbell and his staff and Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, have talked about personnel changes to scheme on defense. But the bottom line is this: if Detroit wants to get a win at Foxborough on Sunday, their defense has to stay off the field. That means long, sustained drives by the offense. Maybe not some big plays, but maybe chunk plays and games and good gains in the ground game. Going to keep the Lions defense off the field because it's been so bad. If the offense can grind out some great drives and keep that defense off the field, they'll have a chance to win at Foxborough this weekend. For more on your Detroit Lions and this weekend's big matchup, be sure to check out the Locked On Lions podcast each and every day, Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Washington Commanders won in week 1, but have since fallen to a 3-game losing streak that has Washington firmly in last place in a strong NFC East. Washington tries to start the comeback this weekend by hosting the Titans, and Locked On Commanders tells you the secret to coming out a winner.
Big news this week as rookie running back Brian Robinson Jr. returns to practice for the Washington Commanders, but he may not have an impact in week 5. I'm David Harrison, one of the hosts of the Locked On Commanders podcast. And for Washington to beat the Tennessee Titans, it'd be great to have Brian Robinson back on the field. But given that he's only going to have 3 practices to try to show that he's ready for NFL action, it remains unlikely that he will play versus the Tennessee Titans, although there is a hope that he could actually be active. If he's not, even if he is, to be honest with you, the key to this game is going to be the Washington Commanders' ability to either stop or mitigate the pass rush threat brought by the Tennessee Titans defense, especially players like Jeffrey Simmons and Danico Autry, either by blocking, chipping, adding help to pass protection, or simply scheming ways for Carson Wentz to get away from the top pass rushers on the Titans defense. If they can, then perhaps the sack numbers can come down from a week-to-week basis that we've seen recently, especially during the 3-game losing streak. If not, it may be another long day for Carson Wentz picking himself up off the ground on the FedEx Field surface. For more on this game and everything Washington Commanders, check out my co-host Chris Russell and I on the Locked On Commanders podcast 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Falcons and Bucs had different expectations going into the season, but now they sit with the same record heading into week 5. That makes this weekend's divisional matchup that much more important. And Locked On Bucs and Locked On Falcons preview the matchup in Tampa.
Take everything you've done in the first 4 weeks, ball it all up, and do it all in 1 week. That is how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get a victory in week 5 over the Atlanta Falcons. I'm David Harrison of the Locked On Bucs podcast. If the Tampa Bay Buccaneers want to take sole possession of first place in the NFC South, they've got to beat their fellow 2-2 division rival Atlanta Falcons, and the way to do it sounds simpler than it is to execute. We've seen really great defense from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season. We've seen really great offense from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season. Now that they're getting some receivers back healthy, if Tom Brady's shoulder injury that he suffered against Kansas City Chiefs doesn't keep him out of this game, putting up points in masses, especially early, will put the pressure on the Atlanta Falcons offense. Coming in with strong defense that we've seen 3 out of the 4 weeks this year will make sure the Falcons can't keep up and keep the score close, and should give the Buccaneers a 14-point win over the Atlanta Falcons and sole possession of first place in the NFC South. For more on this game and everything Tampa Bay Buccaneers, check out my co-host James Yarko and I on the Locked On Bucs podcast 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Falcons defense rising up is the key to victory versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 5. I'm Aaron Freeman, host of Locked On Falcons, If the Falcons' run game is going to get going in week 5, it will be up to their 25th ranked defense to slow down the Bucs offense. The Falcons have allowed 153 combined points in their last 4 meetings against the Tom Brady-led Bucs. And while the Bucs offense is off to a slow start this year, averaging just 17 points a game in their first 3 games, they're coming off a 31-point effort in last week's loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. And while the Falcons have never beat Tom Brady before in his 20-plus year career, if they want to get that first win against the so-called GOAT this weekend, their defense will need to show up. For more coverage of this matchup, follow Locked On Falcons, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Coming up, the Giants and the Packers both try to get their 4th win in the first 5 weeks of the season. This is Locked On Game to Game NFL. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchup, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and displays on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to BetOnline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game NFL. I'm Daniella Bruce, and thank you for making Locked On Game to Game your first listen every weekday. The Dallas Cowboys will put their 3-game winning streak to the test on Sunday when they visit the Super Bowl champion Rams. But LA has had problems to start the season, and Locked On Cowboys sees an opportunity to steal a win out of Inglewood.
If the Dallas Cowboys are going to continue their win streak this week against the Los Angeles Rams, they are going to need another dominant performance by their defense. Hi, I'm Landon McCool, the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and going into Los Angeles this week, the Cowboys face a team that has just come off a Monday night game in which they played a brutal physical game against a division rival against the 49ers. An offensive line for the Rams that was already beat up, got more beat up, and a team that has struggled to run the football and protect Matthew Stafford will be facing Dallas's very vaunted defense. And the Cowboys need that defense to have a dominant performance in order to win this game, because Cooper Rush is likely going to be the starter again this week. And while he has performed fantastically these last 3 weeks, at some point, the turnover luck, the third down conversions rates, it's going to catch up with them. So the Cowboys must get some turnovers, some forced fumbles, some interceptions. They must find a way to improve field position and continue to play dominant football. The Rams look like they're ready to do it. They don't want to run the football. Haven't been doing it very well this season. They haven't been protecting Matthew Stafford very well. So if the Cowboys can continue those trends for both the Cowboys defense and the Rams offense, there should be a lot of sacks. And the Cowboys should be able to turn that into a win with their running game and Cooper Rush making just enough throws to get us by. For more on the Cowboys, make sure you check on the Locked On Cowboys podcast. And for more on the NFL overall, make sure you check out all the podcasts on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Only one game this week features 2 teams that are above 500, the Giants and the Packers. Both 3-1 squads hope to keep pace in their divisions with a win this weekend, and both our Locked On hosts from each team tell you how they can make that happen.
For the second straight week, the key is the same. Stop the opposing running attack. Stop Saquon Barkley, and the Packers will beat the New York Giants in London. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, and that should have been easy enough last week when the Packers were facing Brian Hoyer, if you didn't know, the backup to Mac Jones. But then, just a quarter into the game, it was Bailey Zappi, the backup to the backup. And yet the Packers still could not stop the Patriots' running attack with any sort of consistency, giving up over 5 yards per carry at home in a game where they were double-digit favorites at BetOnline. So, the New York Giants, we don't know who's starting at quarterback. Tyrod Taylor is in concussion protocol. You have Daniel Jones with a heavily taped ankle, which means Davis Webb could be the starting quarterback. Richie James is hurt. Kadarius Toney is hurt. Kenny Golladay is hurt. They might not have quarterbacks to throw the ball or people to catch the ball. This has to be the week where you commit to stopping the run, where you successfully stop the run, and you put up enough points to make this a comfortable win. That's what a Super Bowl contending team would do. If the Packers are that, that is exactly what they will do.
The New York Giants have a rather lengthy injury list, 14 players to be exact. And while each injury is noteworthy in itself, perhaps the biggest and most important ahead of this weekend's game against the Green Bay Packers in London is the left ankle sprain suffered by starting quarterback Daniel Jones last Sunday. Hi, everybody. Patricia Traynor reporting. And the good news is that Daniel Jones is a tough and determined young man who under no circumstances wants to miss a single snap. That's especially important for him as he's playing for his next contract. To that end, Jones was able to practice on a limited basis Wednesday, appearing to move around well during the part of practice open to the media. But the Giants, while optimistic, aren't quite out of the woods yet with Jones as of the end of the day Wednesday. All eyes will be again on the quarterback on Thursday, as the team will likely be holding its breath that Jones doesn't develop any soreness or swelling from his limited activity on Wednesday overnight. If the quarterback passes that test, then he's probably a safe bet to be in the lineup Sunday against the Packers in London. If he doesn't, then the expectation is that Davis Webb, who is likely to be called up from the practice squad regardless, given the concussion suffered by backup quarterback Tyrod Taylor, will get the start. How will it all play out? Well, the Giants are apparently confident enough that Jones will be good to go, so much so that it was reported by The Athletic that Brian Lewerke, who was one of 3 quarterbacks that had a tryout with the team earlier this week, was sent home after being asked to stay overnight in a local hotel. But again, the next 24 to 48 hours will be key for Jones, who is determined not to let this latest setback get in the way of his goals. For more on the New York Giants, be sure to check out the Locked On Giants podcast, free and available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
The last undefeated team in football hits the road Sunday to face off against another wild card team from last season in the Cardinals. Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts are sure to put on a good show in Glendale, and Locked On Eagles has the key to a Philadelphia win.
It's week 5 in the National Football League, and that means that the season is already a quarter over. The Philadelphia Eagles are 4-0 in a pivotal race in the NFC East, taking on the Arizona Cardinals in the desert. We're locked at 2-2 with the rest of the NFC West. Gino Camilleri from Locked On Eagles bringing you your keys to victory for the Eagles in week 5. This is the first time that they're taking on a mobile quarterback. Week 1, it's Jared Goff, then Kirk Cousins, then Carson Wentz, then Trevor Lawrence. Those players do have some running ability to their game, but not as much as Kyler Murray. Kyler is going to truly make you play 11 on 11. Can this defense be gap sound? Can they tackle in the open field? Because if they allow Kyler Murray to allow them to play 11 on 11, it's going to open up the Arizona Cardinals offense and allow the defense to now have to read and react to all 11 players on the field. For the Eagles offense, keep it simple. Keep doing what works. If the pass game isn't working once again, go to the run game. If you can't get the run game going, go to the pass game. The Eagles have to remain consistent. The Cowboys, the Giants, they're nipping at their heels. They're both 3-1 in the NFC East. In the landscape of the NFC, this is a pivotal matchup to cement the Eagles right in the fight to go to the NFL playoffs and hopefully make a run deep in the NFC, which is currently wide open. Stay tuned for Sunday to see what happens in this pivotal matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Arizona Cardinals. Gino Camilleri from Locked On Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly.
That's all today for Locked On Game to Game NFL. Thanks for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, make sure your next listen is your team's local Locked On podcast. I'm Daniella Bruce, and this has been Locked On Game to Game.